Yeah, so the conversation on minimum wage is typically driven by what we talked about last week, which is inflation, right? The costs of everything is going up. And so therefore we think the solution is, well, let's just raise everyone's wages to try to meet the expense of everything that we have. So Tim, why don't you talk to us about the relationship between wages and inflation, and let's get into it there.
Well, we talked about inflation as it goes, as cost of goods and services increased faster than wages increase, it causes problems because we don't have the purchasing power of our dollars being able to keep pace with the money that we have to spend just to provide for the necessities of life. So inflation is an absolute factor. And there are people in the seats of power that say, hey, people can't afford to live on, I think the minimum wage today is $7.25.
$7.25.
They can't afford to live on $7.25 an hour. Yeah. Do you know anyone who actually makes $7.25 an hour? I don't. I don't know anyone who makes $7.25 an hour. In fact, at our company, like, no one's even close to that. So I don't know what this complaint is all about, because the only person that's being paid $7.25 an hour is someone whose work is not worth more than that. And if you arbitrarily say, well, you can't pay this person any less than, say, $12 an hour, you don't make the work that person does at $7.25 automatically worth more than $12 an hour. So that doesn't work. You don't necessarily solve the problem by forcing the minimum wage to be higher. What we do is we cause more unemployment, but that kind of gets to a topic that we're going to get to maybe a little later in our discussion.
So what about the inverse? Is there ever a situation where wages rise faster than inflation?
All the time. All the time.
Is it sustainable?
Generally speaking, yes, as long as productivity and output is increasing.
So there's a dancing act between the two.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But here's the thing. An effective business is not going to pay minimum wage for employees, because if they're paying someone $7.25 an hour for work that's generating $50 an hour, they can't keep that employee at $7.50. That employee is more valuable, and they will go find someone who's going to pay them $15 an hour, or $25 an hour, or $30 an hour to generate $50 in value. So it absolutely is destructive to businesses to simply pay people minimum wage. Yeah. They're not going to do it. Yeah. In fact, when we had COVID going on, and we had this great resignation moment where there were a vast number of people who were resigning from one job to take another job because they could get a 25% pay raise, or whatever the insane amount was.
It was crazy money.
As a company, knowing the value of the work that my team members were generating, I said, I don't want to lose a team member and have to replace them for a ridiculously high number. I'd rather give the team members that I've trained, that are incredibly valuable to me, I'd rather give them a raise now and even another raise later in this year, so that I can afford to keep them happy and keep them here in my company. That is when you allow businesses who are run ethically and honestly to do what they do without forcing some kind of arbitrary price measure by saying someone's work at a minimum level is worth only this amount.
And Tim, I remember when you did that. I remember it very clearly, and we felt respected as employees. We felt valued by one another, but more so by you. And that meant a lot, I think, to us as employees. It's like you had our back, because we saw what was going on out there. We saw the pricing that was going on. And I just want to say 2 thumbs up to all the other owners of businesses that did that same thing. They were not looking at pulling people from other locations, but they valued their people enough to say, you know what, we're going to rise this ship together and make this thing float in newer and better directions.
And they weren't legally mandated to do it.
Not whatsoever. Yes. And it's out of the goodness of their heart, and because I mean, it's cheaper to keep an employee than it is to bring a new one in and train them.
Absolutely.
The cost of training a new employee. I worked for businesses where I did a lot of training. Volumes of time and money goes into that. Let's keep who we have. As long as they're working good and they're doing a good job, keep them going.
Yeah, so I think then like we talked about business owners raising wages out of the goodness of their heart because they appreciate their people. And so, okay, well, can we mandate that? So let's ask the question, is minimum wage the solution?